so often we're trying to control other people or other people's behaviour, but the only thing we can really impact and have control over are our own thoughts and feelings and actions. And while you might want your boss to change or you might want your partner to change, you can waste a lot of emotional energy wishing and hoping that they would change, but the only thing you can really change is yourself.
Hello, I'm Dr Jodi Richardson, and you're listening to Well, Hello Anxiety, a podcast where we end the struggle with anxiety and build our toolkit of practical skills to thrive. Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the podcast. I've got such a special guest today. I'm so excited to introduce you to Sophie Scott. Sophie and I really do feel like we know each other well, despite having only met today for the first time. We follow each other on Instagram. I really encourage you to jump on Instagram and have a look at the amazing way Sophie communicates around mental health strategies and understanding and insights and ideas. Sophie's an amazing science communicator in the area of mental health and so much more. She's actually a multi-award winning medical reporter. And oh my goodness, when I was looking on your website earlier, Sophie, I was just blown away by the amazing, amazing work that you've been doing and how you've been recognised for that, which is awesome. Sophie is a medical reporter working for ABC TV, ABC Radio, and of course also online. Not only that, she's an author of 2 books, an associate professor at the University of Notre Dame Medical School, a speaker, an ambassador, and is on the advisory panel for the Australian Mental Health Prize. Sophie is especially passionate about helping people prevent and recover from burnout, as well as understanding anxiety and the mind-body connection. So, Sophie, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jodi. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's just such a joy. It's so lovely to finally meet. It's not the first time I've met somebody during a podcast and really felt like I've got such a good connection. So that's the beauty of social media in a positive light, isn't it?
Exactly. It does. You do feel like you know somebody. Like I said, I feel like we've already met, even though I think it's because I've read your books and seen all the work that you've been doing. So I definitely feel like we know each other, even though this is our first meeting.
So, Sophie, you are extremely passionate and dedicated to helping other people understand mental health, and not only that, really empowering them. And I wonder what brought you to be so dedicated to this type of work.
So, Jodi, I've always been passionate about understanding what makes people tick. I either wanted to be a journalist or a psychologist when I was at school, and the skills that you need for both careers are really quite similar. You know, being a good listener and having an interest in people. And I've just really noticed over the last little while that people are really, really desperate for good information to manage their own mental health, but really evidence-based information. So, what does the science show makes a difference when it comes to managing anxiety, or what does the science show when it comes to recovering from burnout? And so I feel like I'm able to bring that evidence base to the debate about mental health and give people some really practical tools that you can bring into your life just to make your everyday life feel better, and so that you can go through the day and just sort of feel happier and healthier with all the pressures and everything of our lives that we have to deal with. If there are things you can do to sort of improve your mental well-being, then I'd like to encourage people to do that. And the thing for me is that if I look at the science of happiness and the science of well-being, it's a big motivator to do things. Whereas if you just sort of wait for motivation to do it on its own, often that can not be really enough. And so I think understanding the science of why practices like meditation and exercise and breathing and why all those things make a difference and how they make a difference to your mental health. And if I can communicate that to other people and then they do that because they understand that the science shows it works, then I think that's going to be very useful for people.
I love that you combine that idea of helping people understand why it makes a difference and how to go about it, and leaning on what the science is showing is effective. And because we know that when researchers are undertaking their studies, they're trialing different strategies and they're looking at the difference that it makes for people from from a point of view of their psychological health and from their physiological health. And so being able to do that and have all of your beautiful communication skills to share it in a way that's digestible and is practical, it's often a gap that's not easily bridged, is it? A lot of really great science and knowledge is in journal articles that, scientists will often joke only their parents read, but we know that not to be true.
That is so true, Jodi. There's so much great information and there's so much great research out there about what practices can make a difference to your daily life. And often it's only, if you're lucky enough to see a good practitioner, or you're lucky enough to, you can get in to see someone that they can help you. But not everybody has the ability to go and see a counselor or a psychologist. And knowing that there are things that you can do in your everyday life that'll help you is a big motivator for me. Because, like, for example, I've written books about, in my books that I've written, I wrote about how good meditation is, but I never really did it myself. I just wrote about how good it was, and I looked at the science of it. But it was only when I was really suffering from burnout that I thought to myself, what are the things? I really had to go back to the science, and I really had to go, okay, if you're feeling burnt out, you're really physically tired and emotionally exhausted. You're not really capable of doing a great deal. So it's not like you can radically transform your life in a couple of days. You've got to really go back to basics and think, what can I do to really improve my mental well-being and my emotional well-being? And so that's when I started to think about all these things that I know make a difference and that can keep your nervous system functioning well, and really, do things like get you out of that fight or flight and survival mode that so many of us live in all the time, and into that more calm and relaxed mode where we can cope with what's going on in our daily life. And meditation and a breathing practice is one of the few things that can really do that effectively. Because what I've found as well and a lot of people that I speak to say they feel the same, is that talking about things can help to a certain degree, but often you need to do something that's going to affect you physically and from a physiological point of view. So whether that's breathing or movement or dancing or yoga or something that gets into your body, so that you're using those sort of mind-body practices. Because when we are anxious or stressed or not feeling at our best, it shows up in your body. That's where it shows up. It shows up with your getting migraines, or not feeling great in with aches and pains or whatever you might be feeling. And so the body there's a great book called The Body Keeps Score, and the body. So if we ignore the body and just focus on the mind, we're missing a big chunk of the answer. And so I've found sort of using that approach has really helped, and looking at the science and unpacking the science has really helped as well. And there's so much good research out there. It's really amazing. The thing about that I found as well is that you don't need to sort of radically overhaul your life to feel better. And this, I know you talk about this in your books as well, that it can just be a simple thing. Like for me, I just do some meditation every morning when I wake up, and then I'll aim to just do sort of a small amount of movement or something mindful, during the day. And then again, sort of meditation at the end of the day. So it's not like you're radically changing everything that you're doing. I just try to think, when can I just sort of sprinkle in these little rituals and things that are going to help you feel better, and make it as automatic as possible, so you don't actually have to choose to do it. The more you can just sort of make it like, you wake up and then you think, okay, now I'm going to pop on one of my meditations as soon as I wake up, before you do anything else, even before you get out of bed and before you sort of start, checking your phone and going on social media and news sites and things like that. Just give yourself that little gift of, the first 10, 15 minutes of every day for yourself before you start sort of, doing everything that everybody else wants. And it can make a massive difference. You wouldn't think that just having some rituals in the morning and sort of at the end of the day as well, but those sort of things can make a massive difference to how you feel.
I love that you talk about starting the day that way, because it is so common for people to roll over, and there's a saying that a lot of people will grab their phone before they even touch their partner in the morning. And so to pick up your phone, and yes, and to put on a meditation and to start the day with that as a ritual is easy to do, because it's otherwise easy to lie in bed and scroll for 10 or 15 minutes and then feel rushed, and then all of a sudden you're in a more panicked state and you're starting the day in a way that you'd rather not. But I'd love for you to share what meditation it is that you, or is there an app or a particular meditation that you found you enjoy and is a good length for that first meditation of the day?
Yeah, so there's so many beautiful apps that you can get, some that you pay for and some for free. The one that I use a lot is one that called Insight Timer. I don't know if you've heard of that one, and I've actually started recording my own meditations now for that app. So if anyone's interested, I've recorded a couple on anxiety and a few on calming the nervous system. And I've also got some information on that app about recovering from burnout as well. So while I don't listen to my own meditations, I do love that app because there's just so many different voices to choose from. So I love that, and I find in the mornings a gratitude-based meditation can be beautiful in the mornings, where you really just even sort of think to yourself, a couple of things, even if you just sort of think to yourself, what am I grateful for in this moment, right now, and sometimes you can just think, what's the one thing that would make today a good day? That's another meditation that I really like that you do in the morning. If you just focus on one thing, what's the one thing, if I do this today, that'll make it a good day. And then that way you can go, okay, well that can be that, as long as I tick that one off the list, then I'll know it's been a good day. Because we can often feel quite overwhelmed, particularly if you know you've got a lot on your agenda, where you've got a lot of things to do, and then you can procrastinate and sort of put off doing things. So often really sort of breaking things down and saying, what's the most important thing that I need to get done today? What am I going to feel at the end of the day that I've had a great day if I succeed, if I do this? And to get over that sense of overwhelm that a lot of people do feel, because we're sort of bombarded with so much information and so many to-do lists and things like that. And also recognizing that the problem with a to-do list is that if you get to the bottom of it, you just have to start another one.
Yes.
And so shifting that mindset was important for me as well, not feeling like, you have to get to the bottom of this to-do list, because if you do, then you just start a new one. So you just give yourself a bit of a break and prioritize your time and energy and focus in line with your values and what's most important. And I think when you do that, then you can feel like, you're actually sort of on a journey to feeling a lot better.
Yes, and that idea of that sense of achievement that comes with setting an intention for the day about what is the one thing that I would like to accomplish, and feeling good about having done that, rather than coming to the end of the day and we can tend to focus on all the things that we didn't get done. And we do have that negativity bias, don't we, where we do look out for the things that are threatening, I use air quotes, threatening or harmful or dangerous or stressful. And so that idea of the gratitude meditation, in addition to, or instead of setting an intention for what I can accomplish, I like that, because we as humans, we want to have completion, don't we? We that sense of completion kind of can complete our stress cycle as well. And when it comes to the day-to-day, I mean, I'm sitting here, I've got my washing, you won't see it, but my washing hanging next to me, and lots of things that need doing. But that's always the way. Each and every day, there's always more to do. We'll never get to the end of that list. And so flipping that kind of mindset I can see the difference that must make.
Yes, and I think when you reframe that concept of time, and that time is our most precious resource, it's our most limited resource, but it's also the one that we do tend to waste the most. But recognizing that we can't get everything done. There's you just simply can't do it all. Like I said, even if you do, then a new to-do list just pops up. And so thinking about sort of prioritizing, I think when people are feeling that sense of overwhelm and feeling burnt out, it can be useful to sort of do a stress audit as well, as something that I suggest to people. So sort of write down everything that's sort of adding to those feelings of being overwhelmed, and work out where it's sort of coming from, and then think about what can you delegate, what can you ditch, what can you get rid of, or what can you delay, what can you put off. I'm a great thing if you don't need to deal with it, because I'm used to so many deadlines, like sometimes hourly deadlines or nightly deadlines or weekly. So always think about how important is this? Can I put it, do I need to deal with this today, or can it wait for another day or a couple of days? And
Mm.
that way you feel like you're more in control, and focusing on those things that you are in control of as well. Like I love the Stoic philosophers, Jodi, where they talk about, so it's a really ancient, it's not a new concept, but I think so often we're trying to control other people or other people's behavior, but the only thing we can really impact and have control over are our own thoughts and feelings and actions. And so that's another thing to come back to, just to think about what's actually under my control. While you might want your boss to change, or you might want your partner to change, you can waste a lot of emotional energy wishing and hoping that they would change. But the only thing you can really change is yourself.
Mm.
And that's something that I think is very useful to keep in mind as well.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's something that I've been spending more time talking to the kids about. There's been a lot of stress in my life of late, and I've really, really held on to that idea of focus on what I can control and let go as best as I can, or practice acceptance around what I can't, and also focus on how I can meet those challenges whilst looking after me. And so because that's been so top of mind for me, it's certainly a message that I've been sharing. And it's I think it's one with our families, particularly with our children, that there are so many challenges for children. Social challenges are difficult going through the teenage years, and other challenges as we go through life. So I love that you've raised that. One of the questions I really wanted to ask you was if you could share, please, a bit more about your own journey, because I know that you are passionate about helping people understand about high functioning anxiety and burnout. And I wondered if you'd share with our listeners a little about your own story, and what high functioning anxiety is, and what's helped you in your own mental health and well-being.
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess I've been pretty open about the fact that I did suffer from burnout a couple of years ago, and so and I never really understood what burnout was, and I think burnout's not really that well understood. People think it's like, oh, you're just a bit tired, or you're just a bit, but it's not. You actually you have all the physical exhaustion and emotional, and you have that sort of lack of engagement. People feel very disengaged, and often it can be people, in the caring professions often suffer from burnout. So doctors and nurses and psychologists and first responders and people who give a lot to their job, and then you can often feel quite disillusioned, and then you're not doing a good job anymore. And so I felt I was ticking a lot of those boxes, and I was having a lot of physical symptoms as well, because burnout can affect your autonomic nervous system, and some people get really super high blood pressure problems, or mine was super low, and it can affect your cognition. A significant number of people with burnout will have cognitive difficulties. So this is not something that you can sort of solve just in a long weekend. And so I recognised that I had to, and what happened to me was I was actually hosting a function, and I was standing up at the podium, and I started to become really dizzy, and I thought I was going to collapse and sort of end up in the lap of the people who were at the front of the function. And luckily they were all healthcare workers, so I would have been in good hands, Jodi, but thankfully I just sort of held on and sort of took some deep breaths. And no one really had any idea. No one really knew what I was going through. I was just sort of standing there, and but that was a real wake up call to me, that my body was saying, "This, you can't just keep going on like this, pretending everything's fine when it's really not." And so I did sort of have to take a bit of time out and sort of think about bringing into my life all these practices that we've talked about, like meditation and like some sort of movement and gentle exercise, and sort of prioritizing the things that were really important to me rather than trying to do everything that I was doing. And
Mm.
and then when I started to feel better, I also was sort of delving more into the research about anxiety, and because of certain types of personalities are more likely to burn out, very high functioning people with sort of perfectionistic tendencies, and also people who tend to have what they call high functioning anxiety. So the sort of definition of that is, I guess there's sort of two faces to it. So on the outside, people look they are high functioning. They might hold a very high, hold senior positions in the community. But on the inside, they sort of do really struggle with this sort of a sense of anxiety, and that but they don't often show it. And so they sort of have that sense of you always need to be doing more and achieving more. And there's probably a bit of imposter syndrome thrown in there with high functioning anxiety as well. And one of the real issues with high functioning anxiety is that most people around you don't realize that you have it, because to the outside, you seem like you're really organized and really, you have your whole life together.
Yes.
And
I don't know how she does it. I don't know how he does
it's sort
it.
of like the duck, the duck paddling along, sort of just like gliding along, but then under the surface, there's this like mad paddle to keep things going. And so high functioning anxiety is that's a sort of good analogy for that. And but I think the thing with having something like high functioning anxiety is that it still does impact sometimes the choices that you make, or the opportunities that you might turn down, or because you do have this sort of underlying sense of, I'm not good enough, or I don't want to do that. I'm too anxious. I'm too scared to do that. So even though a lot of people can be very high functioning and have very sort of senior jobs, there is this sort of emotional sort of inner turmoil as well that people have. And so I think there's that conflict between the two things that is what I find interesting with high functioning anxiety. And it's certainly something that a lot of people identify with as well. Even though it's not a formal mental diagnosis, it's something that a lot of people say, yep, that sounds like me. And I think it's good to recognize, if that does sound like you, that there are things that you can do to sort of to overcome it and to feel better, and not have that sort of that sense of the outside world has one view of you, and then you've got this other internal world which is very different.
And really working hard and keeping on paddling to maintain meet the expectations of what you think everyone else wants from you, and what you've set up for yourself as well. It's I'm listening to you, and as the listeners will be as well, probably sort of thinking about, where this fits with me. And I think that for a long time I did feel as though I could never do enough work. There was always, I mean, there always feels like there is something to do, but I think I've come very much to a point now with more learning, more maturity, and really understanding myself and looking after myself, that I can set better boundaries, be better at saying no to opportunities or to requests. That's something that I want to keep working on, because I think that's something that we can do, isn't it? When we are trying to function very highly and not listening to our anxiety, we can sometimes say yes to things we don't want to and no to things we'd love to, but the anxiety can get in the way. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, 100%. And I think the other thing with anxiety that I've sort of, and the other thing that I think about is, often when you have a negative emotion like anxiety, you can sort of reframe it in some ways to be, it's the body's just, you're feeling excited. And so rather than seeing it as a negative thing and trying to get rid of it and push it down, a bit like trying to push a balloon underwater, all you do is just like it just bursts back up again. And being able to sort of sit with those uncomfortable emotions, and practice that radical acceptance that you talked about, and learning to sit with uncomfortable emotions is a really valuable skill to develop. It's not easy, and it can be easier to try to sort of, you might think it's better to sort of to get rid of those negative emotions, but you can just expend a lot more emotional energy trying to get rid of the negative emotions. And so
Yes.
that's something that I went to an amazing retreat in Thailand earlier in the year and worked with a mentor at a retreat. And one of the biggest things he was talking about was being able to sit with uncomfortable emotions, and even just telling yourself when you do feel those sort of waves of anxiety or the waves of the negative emotions, sort of just telling yourself that you're okay, that you're safe, and they're not, that you can sit with uncomfortable feelings, and then like any feeling, it'll just come and go. Like any good feeling or any negative one, they don't last that long. And just sort of riding it out like a bit of a wave, and I think that's been something that I found really helpful as well, because as human beings, you're going to have ups and downs in your emotions and your feelings, and we can't expect to be happy all the time. And so, yes, being able to sit with those negative emotions is definitely something that's very valuable.
Mm. And it's very liberating. I remember sitting in my kitchen one day and putting in an SOS to my psychologist. This is at a time around a 6-month period where I was clinically depressed. I put in the SOS, and of course, you can't just ring your psychologist. You have to wait for a call back. And he said, "What if you just stayed where you are?" He said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm sitting on the kitchen floor, leaning on the cupboards, crying." And he said, "Well, and that's okay." And he said, "You're feeling depressed, and that's okay. And it's okay to sit there and to feel it. There's nothing to do. There's nowhere to be. You can just say to yourself, 'I'm feeling depressed, and that's okay.' And consider what you might like to do when the feeling passes." So he was very gently giving me this hope that, well, this is not going to last forever. This idea that with some, there's some things that I can choose. I have some choice, and when this passes, I can. So then I started to focus on what I might do next, and it was a very, very gentle and very wise conversation that we had, and it was the very first time I actually sat with how I felt. And you will probably notice too now that when you experience anything from anger to frustration to disappointment to sadness to anxiety to whatever it is that we don't like, when we can say to ourselves, well, this is just how I feel at the moment, and I know it'll pass, and we drop that struggle with it. The irony is it passes sooner than if we hold on for dear life to trying to feel good.
And I think it was also being able to sort of name how you're feeling, and just there's a great technique called sort of name it to tame it, where if you actually sort of think about, okay, I'm feeling anxious or depressed, or but what am I actually feeling? Is it fear? Is it frustration? Is it sadness? Like, actually sort of trying to put a bit more of as many sort of labels or naming of the actual feeling. And what that does is it sort of separates you from the feeling as well, because you're sort of putting a label on it. It's not you, it's just the feeling that you have at that minute. And again, that can be a really useful technique as well, just saying, what is this feeling, and what is it, and knowing that it will pass, it will go, even though it might be challenging in that moment, you will pass through it, and come out the other side, and recognizing that even though might not be pleasant at that minute, just let it sort of come and go, and it will go, and then you will feel better.
That's it. And then you can move on and take action and do something that's important.
Yes. I also find, like, if you are someone who's a bit of like, if you've got a tendency for overthinking or rumination, for me, taking action and moving is a good thing. Like, if I'm sort of in a frame of mind, like I might wake up, and if I wake up and my mind starts racing and I start thinking about things, once I've done a meditation, the best thing for me is actually to get up and get out of bed and start doing something, rather than I would love to be one of those people. I used to be able to just lie in bed for hours, but now I find I'm much better to just get up and start doing things. So the action of it's sort of like the action of moving and doing something changes. You change your environment, you change what you're doing, and then that changes how you feel and how you think as well. So for me, that's something that makes a big difference as well.
Oh, you've already shared so much with us around your use of the Insight Timer, and it's always nice to get recommendations for listeners to try something if they haven't already, or to affirm to them that other people are loving it as much as they are. The idea of a morning meditation, the idea of movement, the idea of taking action and getting up, changing your environment, shifting from a state where and a place where you might be ruminating and stuck in a bit of a vicious cycle of thinking, and getting up and changing things up, and that all of those are practical ways that people can start to manage their mental health. And I wondered if before we finish up for today, you might have one or two other science-backed strategies that you use, maybe around the nervous system and relaxation, so that listeners who might identify with high functioning anxiety, or anxiety of any kind, or even feeling like they're on the road to burnout, that might be helpful.
Yeah, so I would definitely say number one is the breathing and those meditations. But then the other things that can be really helpful are sort of grounding practices. So things where you're sitting on and you've got your feet firmly on the floor, anything that sort of really helps you get out of your head and into your body. um, and it can be as simple as, there are grounding sort of meditations you can do where you take your mind back to a time where you felt very safe. You sort of take your mind back to a memory where you felt really happy and safe and loved, and it can be really helpful to try to sort of put yourself back in that situation. Like, how did you feel, and what could you see, and what could you smell, and try to bring those sensations back to life. And then what that does by sort of recreating that memory of safety, even if it was a long time ago, it can replicate that sense of safety that you felt back then in your body right now. And so you can find that your heart rate will slow down, and your breathing, and you'll get all the benefits of that sense of safety in yourself that you felt back then, you can feel right now. And often for me, whenever I think about those moments, it's about connection. And so it can be really helpful for for you to think about, when did you feel really connected to someone? You were with someone, it might be when you were young and you were with your family of origin or your parents, and they were, feeling that sense of unconditional love that children have from their parents, and to sort of recreate that sense of safety that, a loved child would feel. And so those sort of practices, even though it's something you're talking about and thinking about, but it's recreating that feeling in your body and that sense of safety. And so I love learning about all those practices, and I love sort of putting those into practice as often as I can, because when like I said, the body holds on to stress and tension, and even through different, when we're stressed, we release cortisol, and that gets stored in the body and can impact how you feel. And so you need to sort of think of ways that your body can help you get back to feeling the way you felt, before. And so, yeah, these are some of the things that really make a difference for me, and connection is a massive part of that. So that sense of human connection with people that really care about you and love you unconditionally, and the more you can be around those people, the happier you'll feel.
Yes, and the beautiful way that calm people around us, calm is catching in the same way stress and anxiety is catching as well. And so,
100%.
choose who you spend your time with if you're
And
feeling a
choose
bit
it wisely, yes. And if you don't have any nice people, just find a nice pet you can pat, because even you can get that beautiful co-regulation of the nervous system. You can get it from pets as well. So if you've got a little dog you can pat, or a cat, some that's going to make you feel relaxed. Another thing that I really love is being near the water. For me, that's super relaxing, just being near the water. And so you've got to really, in our busy lives that we all lead, you've got to actually sort of manufacture these moments to get to that state. So, and then the more you can, then you can sort of regulate your nervous system so that you can then call on those feelings when you need them. And that way you're not sort of reacting to what's going on, but you can sort of take a breath and sort of respond to things rather than just simply react. But yes, I think choose the people that you spend time with wisely, because it does have an impact on your nervous system.
Yes, indeed it does. Indeed it does. And, I sense that today, just saying hello and spending this time with you, that you've got such a beautiful, calming way about you. And you've not only shared that with me, but with the listeners, as well as these insights that you've learned through your own experiences and, of course, through your own research and the amazing work that you're doing. And one of the things that I'd love to invite listeners to do is to sign up to your mailing list, because Sophie is a beautiful writer and really shares such powerful knowledge in the work that she does, whether that's through her television reporting and radio online newsletter and Instagram and LinkedIn and the like. Where can people find you when they look to connect with you?
Yeah, so my website's a great place to start. So it's www.sophiescott.com.au, and there's blogs there, and if people are on Instagram, then my Instagram is Sophie Scott and the number 2. But the website, I do love writing. It's one of my great passions, and so if I can sort of translate some of the concepts of mental health into some practical tips for people, and they can even adopt just one thing. That's what I say to people. Just think about just one thing you can do that'll sort of boost how you feel, and it really will make a difference.
Yes, it really will. Honestly will. It's bringing any one of those practices into your day, even if it's just a couple of minutes to start with, is going to make a powerful difference. So, Sophie, thank you so much for joining me today. It's just been delightful to spend this time with you, and I'm so grateful that you've been able to share your wisdom and experience with our listeners. And I know that you've got another appointment coming up, and so on with the day. Thank you again. Yeah, very, very much. And I'll put all of the information about where you can connect with Sophie, as well as the Insight Timer meditation, Sophie's books, and where you can follow and find Sophie's work. I'll put all of that in the show notes, which, as a reminder, are available on my website if you click on any podcast episode on my website. All right. Well, thanks again, Sophie, so much for your time.
Thanks, Jodi.
Thank you. And thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much. And I'll very much look forward to being back with you again next Wednesday. Take care. Bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr Jodi Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.